All right, hello everybody. Welcome to my channel. I'm Serena and I'm going to be doing this free tutorial for you today on how to make a wire wrapped ring. And for those of you that are new, I will always go over the supplies and the tools needed to create a wire wrapped ring. All right, so let's jump right into that. We're going to go ahead and introduce you to whatever stone or what type of gemstone type cabochon. I happen to have picked out one that is about an 8mm. So I measured that out on this device here. It's about an 8mm. It does have a flatter side. It is kind of faceted, however. For a beginner, I recommend to start out with something flat. So 8mm is always a good size. Okay, you can use flat cabochon, gemstone, small button, anything that's flat that will stay put if this is the first time for you. Okay, so that's what I'm going to be using today. And I'm going to be using my nylon jaw pliers. This helps so that it can straighten and smooth out your wire. I particularly like to work with copper dead soft wire, and this will straighten and this will flatten without marking up the wire. Okay, that is nylon jaw pliers. We've got the round nose pliers, good for getting into those areas to create curls. Welcome in, you guys. Thanks for watching. This is great for curling little ends and making those little articulated ends curl or whichever way you want them. Think of that similar to a curling iron, okay? Your curling rod. Now these are wire cutters. These are just basic wire cutters. They do have some fancy schmancy out there if you're ordering online and whatnot, but if you're just starting out, just get a basic set, nothing too fancy, to clip your wires. And keep in mind, you only want to be cutting one wire at a time. Again, I recommend if you're just starting out, start out with something that's more inexpensive, such as copper dead soft wire, or you can even try aluminum, okay? But aluminum does tend to mark up a little bit easier, okay? So those are your cutters. This is a great tool to have in your toolbox. This is a specialty plier called the Xuron 450 tweezer nose pliers. Okay, notice they are smooth inside. These get into those hard to reach places. I'll be using those as well. Now, this is another set of specialty pliers. This is Xuron 485. Okay, these are more flatter, so compared to the tweezer nose, these are going to be a little bit more helpful in the wider flattening areas that I need to do to flatten those wires down and cinch them down there. Okay, and I always recommend a jewelry grade file. You can get these at your local craft store or online. This is great for filing down the wire so you don't have protruding areas that are going to potentially poke you in any jewelry pieces that you create. This was not listed in the description box. However, it was one of the little measuring devices. Happened to come with a set of pliers I got years ago, a little basic wire jewelry plier set. So you may have seen this around, and it is helpful when you need to reference and refer back to measuring the size of whatever stone you're working with. So I hope that helps you guys out. Okay, that's just the basic stuff here. And last but not least, the wire type. Now this is raw copper wire we're going to be dealing with. I particularly like to use square wire, 20 gauge square wire. Now this is raw dead soft copper, okay? This is what I'm going to be using. I recommend if you're just starting out, use whatever you have. If you have round wire, that's fine. I'll let you know as we go along what's suitable for twisting and what's not suitable. Square wires, personally, just personal preference of what I like to use when I create rings, along with the half round wire. And half round wire is just as it sounds. It's sliced wire, essentially 20 gauge, and one side is flat, the other side is domed, okay? That is half round wire, 20 gauge. dead soft raw copper again that we're using. All right, so the last item here takes up a little space is a ring mandrel. Now, if you don't have a ring mandrel, that's okay. Something round that you know effectively is going to be roughly the size that you're aiming for in making a ring is going to be helpful for you. This right here you can find online. It's just a basic ring mandrel. This one goes from size 1 all the way up to size 15, okay? And it is very helpful to have something that you can shape accordingly, okay? So those are all the items that I've got. Did want to show you kind of a ring that I've done in the past. Now I put some coils on this one here. You can see the side work detail here on the ring. That's where your little round nose pliers come in handy to make curls and such. This is your basic coils here. When I say coils, that's what a coil looks like. And these are your foundational wire coils here on the band. So I'm going to put this here and hold as steady as I can and show you, okay? So that's going to be the band that we're making and building. All right, so let's get started. Thank you for being here. Feel free to like and subscribe this video and interact. It helps me become visible and continue to bring you guys free content. The notification bell is also helpful in future upcoming content. So thank you guys. Let's get started. Now, as you notice down here, I do have a measuring tape. It is a sticker. You'll need something to reference to if you have a ruler. I always like to tell people, if you're just starting out, cut yourself about three feet, which is 1 foot times 3 here. I'm going to roughly do about 10 inches only because my ring size is a 7.5-ish or 7 3/4, around that size. If you're a little bit larger ring, then I suggest you take up at least a foot long when you cut your wire. Okay, so this first 20 gauge square wire, we're going to cut about the 9-10 inch mark here. Okay. All right, so you're going to need your clippers. So I'm doing that 3 times here, equal lengths. So there's one, okay? One at 10 inches. Measuring my second and then my third. All right. Okay. So just get that measured there and cut it. Again, cut one wire at a time when it comes to using your clippers. And I'm going to go ahead and get that last one by measuring here. All right, here we go. All right, got that. Okay, so that is your 3 pieces at 10 inches, the length I'm using, okay? You can always cut down on the length, but if you're just starting and not sure which size, then, of course, you may want to use up to a foot long each length here. All right, so let's get that together. Make sure they're even gathering these guys. We're going to move the rest of these tools out of the way. Okay, feel free to comment and I'll see it. I do have 2 different devices running on this tutorial. Okay. All right, so put your 3 together. And what you're going to do is we're going to bind these 3 wires together. We're going to bind them together so that they end up creating that band. Now we're going to use the half round 20 gauge, half round wire. Now again, just starting out, if you are just wanting to do a basic ring without the extra coils in it, such as the decorative coils around the cabochon, then you may want to just clip about a foot. Now, if you're wanting to do detail, I tend to work off the spool. However, the trick to using half round wire is you want to keep your fingers as close to your work as possible to avoid any kinks. Okay. So taking my half round wire, I'm leaving a piece of length here, such as a tail, finding an approximation of the center. You're going to put your half round wire dome side up and flat side against your foundational square wires here and coil. Okay. Coil it around. Now, when I say that you want to maintain these wires being flat, you can take your nylon jaws, flatten it out. If that helps you flatten it out easiest. Okay. Try to keep your coils together. You can always squish them together as well. After you get the first few going, it gets a little bit easier. Maintaining my half round wire, I'm working with my left hand and twisting. Again, my wire is attached to the spool because I'm trying to reduce waste on what I clip off and what I end with, okay? Now, the key to making the coils, again, they're going to slide up and down on these foundational wires, which is absolutely fine. That's kind of what you want until you're ready to crimp everything down flat with those flat nose pliers that I showed you earlier. Okay, so keep it going. And the key to how many coils do I need, you may be thinking, well, that's going to play a role when we shape this band, because this is going to be our band, shaping the band around the mandrel and according to what size of stone you need or are using, because you're going to create a surface to support, kind of like a bridge to support that. And I'll show you a little bit more in detail on what I mean as we get closer. So again, keeping your fingers as close to your work is very helpful and a key tip in using half round wire. If you don't use half round wire, that's fine. You can use round wire. You do want to use I would say roughly probably a 24 gauge round wire if you do. So something that's not so thick and hard to, it's easier on your fingers. Okay, again, if you need to go along, this is what you should be doing here. Again, that domed side of the half round is upwards facing us, and the flat side is against those 3 wires that it's being bound around. Okay, so keep it going, keep it going. All right. Go ahead and you keep going. This is going to take a little bit. As you know, this is not a pre-recorded video. Doing this live, you're going to see just exactly how much time is entailed for the type of ring we're doing. Thank you again for you guys for coming in. Feel free to ask any questions. I'll see them pop up on my device here. You can follow along, crimping these down. Or you can just watch, say, hey, and I'll see it. All right, continuing on here. Notice how my wires are all flat. They're not bunched because we're keeping them flat as we go along the way and crimping those down, okay? So just want to make sure everyone understands, the more you keep that together there, the more polished look you'll have. Now, if these coils aren't side by side directly next to each other, that's where you can push them together right here with your fingers. All right, so continuing around. All right. I also instruct how to do this in person, making your pendants and rings. If you are local in the Jacksonville, North Carolina area, that is where I am at. If you're ever passing through, I do offer one-on-one services. I work out of my home. I've worked in the past at Artwork Studio here in Jacksonville and the bead shop that used to be located on Henderson Drive. Okay. All right. So right now, my wire's giving a little bit like it wants to twist here, which is pretty common. So what I'm going to want to do is, because again, folks, I am on my spool, attached to my spool here, I want to give tension and put so nothing gets twisted as I go along. Okay, continuing, carrying on here. Still going. So you want to only coil as much as you're going to need because this right here is going to get shaped around the mandrel. Let me show you just what I mean here. So for visual folks like myself, if I'm aiming to do a 7.5 ring, then I want to at least approximately 7 3/4 or an 8. That's where you want to start your measuring. So roughly 1/4 of a size to 1/2 a size. Okay. So we've got just like this, and you can keep going. Now, if you're doing a smaller ring, slow down, and I'm going to give you your next step here shortly. Because again, depending on your stone size, the millimeter size, the diameter of it, you're going to create what looks like a bypass and a bridge here shortly. All right, so let's kind of get you caught up here. For those that are making smaller sizes, okay, for example, if you're wanting a 6, so you need to move up to a size 6.5 or 6 3/4. Okay, when doing this. Now, I'm trying to do a 7.5, 7 3/4 size. So I may want to move down to an 8 or 7 3/4 if I want a 7.5. So what I'm going to do, again, you don't have to be too specific. If you've got a ruler handy, you can still shift. You should be able to shift these to get a better middle here. These coils in the middle. So let's move this down to a 7 3/4. We're going to go now wrapping around the mandrel. This is going to give you a better idea. For those that are making the smaller ring sizes, is why I'm showing you here. You want to keep that on the mandrel when you're shaping. Okay. And let's do it this way so you can see. You're going to create that bypass like I was telling you. Right here where these 6 wires are now laying side by side. Once you've reached your coils here, according to your size, this bridge right here is going to support your stone. What you want to do is make sure you coil just along here, not around all of 6, but still those original 3. Keep going until you get approximately to that position where the end coil where you started and this end coil where you're at is the correct space here needed to support your stone. If that makes sense to you guys. Feel free to ask any questions as I'm going along. All right, so that gives you guys a better visibility. So keep going with that, the coils. Okay. Now for me, I'm going to go ahead and cut off the spool here because I've already created that shape here with the mandrel. I'm going to give myself excess as much as I don't want like having extra waste because I do have a scrap bin. I'm going to go ahead and cut my wire down. Okay. So I cut off my half round from the spool, so I'm no longer attached. So I'm going to keep going until I get to that point where that first coil where I started and this coil here gives me enough space for that stone size. So keep going. So I open mine up so I can continue to work efficiently here. And if you need to, just gently move your stuff out the way, what you need, and keep going. Keep going. Okay. Controlling that half round, like I've said time and time again, because it will test you. It will test you. Okay. So if you need your tools to step back in here, flatten some stuff down by all means. Just try not to make too much coils. Refer back to your ring mandrel. Put it back on, put it back as such. Get an idea. Looks like I still have a little ways to go here. So got a little bit ways to go. So opening these here. Keep coming through. Okay. All right, let's cinch some of this down here. All right, we're going to bring the mandrel back into frame and we're going to see where we're sitting. So again, if I'm trying to get a 7.5 where I want to end up, put your stuff back on. Try to measure about a quarter size to a half size up, because when these wires go under the bridge here to secure your stone, that's going to take up some space. Okay, and so finger space, if you will. So where I am at, where's my stone? Here's what I'm telling you about. You want to make sure your coils, again, the stones, they're going to fall here because they're not secured down. We need to keep going a tiny bit more, maybe a coil or two more for my stone. Okay. Now this little tail we'll cut off in a moment. I just wanted to make sure that you guys have a way of gripping, which is helpful usually when you're starting out, to keep things in place. Okay. All right. So make sure you're getting those together there. Everything's flat and polished looking. Okay. All right, I think I'm pretty much good. I'm going to refer back to the old mandrel. Let's keep that good in here. All right, essentially, probably going to be good right here. Maybe about one more coil for me. All right. Then I'm going to cut off that pigtail there. When you cut and clip that starting point where we started out and you left a tail there, you're going to clip so that it is on your top side and it's not on the side and where you would potentially be sliding your bands on and it poke you. Okay, so we're going to end it up here somewhere. All righty. So let me get that done. Yep, that's about where I want it. Okay, so your tail where we first started, refer back to that area. And if you guys can't see this, please somebody let me know. I apologize because I've got the light here and I don't want to, let's see how that would look. Nope, not good at all. So we're going to clip, again, that first tail. We're going to clip it and make sure it's on the top side. Control your little clippings so they don't fly and pop you in the face. Okay, safety, safety. I do that so I don't have anything flying at me. Okay, the xurons are going to come in handy here, your tweezer nose. You're going to want to smash that down. Okay. Okay. Now that tail that I cut is not protruding past the band. It is somewhere in the middle of those 3 wires where I clipped it, if you can see that. Let's see, I have a feeling this isn't going to show up. This is about as good as it's going to be. Okay. Now, I'm going to bring those back together, making sure and trying to keep these 6 wires here. I want you to visibly see the stone that I have. The stone is now in the center here. The bridge that I'm talking about is these 6 wires. We're now going to bind around them. Okay. So continue bringing your half round wire. Now binding all 6 of these together. Keep it as straight as possible. If you need to use that nylon jaw, do so. So it straightens out your wire for you. Such a great tool. Okay, and keep your coils that are being bound around all 6 wires as flat as possible, as straight as possible, and next to one another. Okay. Going through the tunnel and binding these guys all together. Now, as you go along, if you need to, at this point, these flat nose pliers right here come in handy for crimping these wires, the half round, and making it flatter for you. Now, if you need these to gently do this here, squish them together so that they're all covered and aligned. Alrighty, keep it going. All we're doing is we're getting to that point where we meet up to that original coil that we started with. When we clip, it's going to be on the very top. Again, so that the stone is resting on it, it's no way going to protrude and poke you. Okay, so just keep that in mind. All right, so this is what you should have. Okay, again, you're meeting this coil, what you're working with, up to that first coil you started with, where we had clipped the piggy tail in the beginning. Okay, so making sure all my stuff's together, getting it flattened out so I can see my true bridge here. Okay, keep it going. And as you see visibly, your stone is going to set on those 6 wires that we've bound together. All right, I think I need a couple more here just to make sure. Squishing those down, squishing those together, and continuing. Okay, again, you want to end when you clip, you're going to clip on the top, the wire that the half round that we have. Okay, so actually this might be the last coil that I'm doing because as you can see, I am touching right there that original wire that we had clipped. So if I go around, it's just going to bulk up and not look as flat as everything else. All right, let me squish and get that again. Yep, that's pretty much going to be my final coil. So when I clip and when you clip, make sure that you're on the top side of this bridge and you are in between those 3 wires that it's closest to, not protruding past those 3 wires. Okay. All right. Let's get that out of the way. And I'm going to come in here with the tweezer nose and get that smashed down on its own as best as possible here, not going and overlapping. You want that squeezed down, okay? All right. Now these 3 wires here and the 3 wires over here sticking out, we're going to go ahead and move them up, just like such. Just gently bend them up. Okay, you notice my little coil here is coming up, so I'm going to cinch it down once again. Smash that down as best you can, okay? Now these 3 wires, bring them up. Okay. Now if your wires aren't straight, like mine, you'll need to take your nylon jaws and straighten out these wires before you continue. So again, with this square wire, just giving it tension and pulling. What that's doing is it's smoothing it out. It's heating the wire in a way so it's no longer in its original factory setting, if you will, when you receive this wire. Okay, that's part of the hardening that it's doing to the copper. Keep that in mind, okay? All right, all 6 of these need to be straight, like such. So what you should have is what looks like a skeletal bow in a sense. Now this area in the center, I'm going to go ahead and smash that down, flatten everything down, if you will, so that my stone's going to sit properly here. Because if you have it kind of twisted or bunched up, just keep in mind you want a flat surface to work with, which is why I highly encourage, if you're first time doing this, go ahead and use a flat stone or a flat surface type bead, something that's not going to move, something that's not tumbled, because you get those crazy rhombus shapes and tumbles, and it makes it that much more harder, and you want to try to simplify this as you go. Don't get discouraged. It does take practice to do these, okay? So as you can see, I've got my stones sitting here. What I'm going to do and choose to do. Now, folks, if you're not using square wire, this is personal preference. That's fine. You won't be able to do this step, but just know what you can put in your toolbox is I want to grab my nylon jaw pliers at the tip of one of these, okay? And with tension, you just twist. So you're using both hands here. Try to keep it in its place and not wrap around these other wires as you're doing this. If you let go and lose your grip, that's fine. You can come back to it. I'm choosing to do this. As you can see, the light's picking up on the square wire to give that sparkle. Okay. You can choose to do this. You don't have to. Again, round wire, you can't do this with. This is the square wire where you can do this with. Okay. Now, if you want to go smaller as far as that twist, you certainly can, but it's going to give you that effect, okay? You can choose to do it or not do it. You could do half of them like that. You don't have to, okay? So I've got one there, and I think I'm going to do probably, let's see. And again, keep these as you can. If you need to straighten out your others because it got kind of funky along the way, go ahead and do so. Okay, bring them back to their original positions, just like such on each side, okay, because that's going to help you out when it comes time to securing your stone. All right, this is just straight decorative if you want to do this. So I'm going to go ahead and do this middle one of that same side I was working on. Twisting and twisting. Okay, just check it out. Is it the same that you want it? I want to go a little bit more. Okay, so like such, I've got two on the same side here. And I'm going to do that third one on the exact same side before I do straightening my wire. There we go. Grab onto it at the end here and twist. Okay, so you're seeing what I'm seeing here. They're almost the same tightness, similar tightness here of that design. Okay, thank you. I appreciate those thumbs up, you guys. Sweet people. Thank you so much. All right, now let's just do the rest of these three here. And I'm going to show you how to secure your stone thereafter. Again, this is, you guys are seeing this in real time, so there is no time lapse on this part. So you're seeing just as much the effort and work and time it takes to make one of these, okay? All right. Don't get discouraged is the best advice, and wire's going to do what it wants to do. It does take practice, but don't ever get discouraged because there's no right or wrong way to do this, okay? All right, got the middle one going on, and I've got one more almost to do here. All right, so we've got 5 out of 6 done. Let's do this last one here. Okay. It's like a little Wolverine that's always moving the mat here as I twist it for you guys. Here we go. All right, I think those look about the same as far as tension on the twists. So we're going to go ahead, making sure my bridge here is flat. Like I said, sometimes things move in motion as you're doing twisting of the wires. Go ahead and get it to the position you want here. Making sure your wires are straight on each side, okay? They're upwards. I'm going to do the best I can to set my stone up for success here. All right, here's the fun part, the tricky part, you guys. setting your stone in the center here. That's why it's so imperative to get the distances correct here to support your stone, okay? So if you don't, it may take an uncoiling if you did it too big, and then unfortunately, if you did not do enough coils to support your stone's larger than what the support bridge that you've made, you may have to go back and play with that part, okay? However, we're going to continue on. The stone may pop out as I work, but you get the idea. As it's sitting flat here, I'm going to choose to work with this side, my right side, okay? Now, when I do this, what I'm going to do is securing it around the stone, going behind the other set of 3. So don't go in front, go behind when we wrap this. I'm going to show you as best I can, you guys, here. Stone may pop out, that's okay, just keep at it. So taking these 3, keeping them in line and straight, we're going around. We're going to go do a 180 essentially. Okay. So try your best to keep your stone centered there. Mine is definitely, if you got something polished, highly polished, it is a little challenging, but you'll get it. You'll get it. Okay. We're going behind these 3 right here to get to the other side. Okay. So around, keeping your stone set there, coming around and down. Okay, now if your stone wants to pop out and pop up, just try to best to move it back in there. Okay, coming around, and then we're going to go downwards with this. Now these 3 over here, the ones that we haven't twisted up yet like we have this first set, those are going to go the opposite way. So my stone's not sitting flat yet, and that's expected. You can always move these wires here so that it's helping you put that stone down and seat it, if you will. Okay. So with these other 3, this is now my left side. I am coming right. Exactly the same motion, just we're going to end up on the opposite side of the band with this. Keep your 3 together. And the stone is just wanting to do what the stone wants to do. Okay, try to use your left thumb, pin your stone down, and use your right hand to go around that stone and behind those other 3 wires previously that we had bent. Okay. All right. And I'm going to come downwards with this. Downwards. Again, you want these wires to stay straight and side by side, not bunched up, not out of order, okay? That's going to help you once you get to finalizing and securing your stone. So now, see how my stone wants to, it's a little bit better, but not quite because we haven't wrapped underneath this band here. So if you need to play with these wires and get it where it needs to be, go ahead and straighten them out, whatever you have to do. That's going to help us here. So again, being careful with the metal tools that you have. You want to make sure that you're not marking, too heavy-handed with your tools you're using. Okay. As you can see that we've got a stone kind of set here, but it needs to be secured a lot better. So when we pick a side to start with, you'll start to see it stay put finally, okay? All right, so if you need to come up with your wires to bring them over the stone and to seat that stone, okay? See what I did here? I created space. That may be what you need to do. Mine stones tends to sit a little bit higher, so it won't hurt you as far as you want to make sure it's not going to come out when you're wearing it, when you're doing anything, okay? So you can go ahead and make space here. Do the same thing to the other side. So which one was that? Let's do that to the other side. Okay. You're not going to hide your stone. It'll still show. This is just to make sure that you know how to properly secure and cage that in, so to speak. If you need to use your nylon jaws, do so. Just be aware of the tension that you're using. Okay. All right. Now I'm going to choose to use this longer side here, this longer side, and I'm going to go ahead and bring, keeping these three right here together like they are, I want you to bend and come towards yourself, keeping them in the same order. Okay. So it may take a little finesse because copper is, this is dead soft copper we're using. However, it's going to be a little bit of a more, need to be graceful with this. Okay. You see how I'm keeping everything together, going underneath the band, and I'm coming towards myself. Okay. Just keep everything in order there. My left thumb is holding that stone down so that any of those wires, that they're going to stay against where they're at. Minimal movement, if you will. Okay. Take your nylon jaws if you need to, or if you're using your hands. Keeping your wires together. See, mine wanted to get crisscross. What you want to do is take that here, keeping your wires together. Flat, covered, and aligned nicely. Okay. Going back towards the way we started, towards the back. Now I'm going to use, let's see, I got to use these to kind of push my stuff down because I'm seeing that they're not covered and aligned like I want them. Okay. Now, if your wires are extremely way too long, you can simply cut them down a little bit. I understand the frustration when things are too long. It makes it a little bit more difficult to maneuver, to manipulate, to get things polished. Totally understand. So with these, I'm going to use my flat nose and get them cinched down a little bit here, flattened, if you will. Not too much, because again, you'll mark up your wire. Okay, so you see now our stone's getting seated. We still got to get the other half. I'm going to raise the other half so it goes over the stone. But the stone essentially is going nowhere. It's going nowhere once you get closer to the end here. All right, still going. Still going. Put them together. Now this may take, like I said, polished look. Take your time with it. However, I'm not here to put you all to sleep. Okay, so I've got my first one. What I like to do is I've gotten over and under the band once on this side. What I like to do is work with the other side and get to that point so that I'm working kind of symmetrically here, and I'm not doing just one side completely and then finishing it. All right, so let's go with this side. We want to raise, as I was saying, I want to raise it so it's over my stone with that first wire there. Raising it so it's secure and it will seat properly. So if it takes a little finesse, maybe what you need to do there. Okay. All right. Just take your time with it. Okay. So my stone's looking good. It's flat. It's in there. That one's coming above it. Okay. And you can also go back as well once you're finished with this, and it kind of, put things, seat them down a little bit better with your tools. Okay, so let's go. Just doing the same exact thing. I think I pushed that wire down. So let's get that wire up here because I like to work it if I can while I'm doing it before I completely seat it. All right. Okay, let's see what we got here. Working real quick back to that first place. There we go. All right. So these three now, this was the shorter that I had of the 6. So this side now, we're going to go under, come towards yourself. Come towards yourself, keep those wires. Make sure you're a left hand or opposite hand if you're a lefty, righty, whatnot. I'm right hand dominant, so Left hand is holding the stone and the wires there. My right hand is keeping these wires straight, kind of finesse and get them underneath that band coming towards you. Okay. All right. So these are towards me. I told you things are a little easier when it's shorter wire. So this one didn't give me as much of a problem. All right. See, the stone is not going anywhere, you guys. Okay. Coming in, wires side by side, come up and going towards the back, away from you now, direction. Okay. You want that to be as straight as possible, not a lot of space between you coiling around, going over and under that band. You want it to be tight, okay? Let's get some of that. I'm seeing some of these coils here, and you can technically go around your band and smash these down. What I like to do is a chasing hammer in the end and get my band hardened, if you will. Let's not worry about that this second. All right, so now we're at this, we're even here, okay? You should be even. Like I said, I work symmetrically for the most part. Okay, if you need to adjust your stone here, it shouldn't be popping out at this point. It should be seated in there, you see? If I can show you all angles there. Okay, it's not able to pop out. All right, let's choose the longer side, if you will. Now at this point, if you just you just want to do another wrap around the band, you certainly can. You don't have to. If you'd like to make your little curls here, you can. I'm going to choose to do this for extra security and go around again underneath the band, okay? So we're going to do that, finesse it, keep the wires as straight as you can. Get some tools involved if you need. Pull it towards you. See, mine aren't even right now, so just be patient with it. Get these little wires where they need to be. All these guys need to be seated on the top properly. So just a moment while we get that in there. Just keep them as even as you can. Some of them like to fuss, some of them not so much. All right. Just seat it. Okay. I'm using my nylon jaws. I told you guys I want this wrap to be close. I don't want any room. I want it to be tight here. So if you need to go back in with some of your wire tools and smash them down, make sure they're good, laying properly, do so. Okay. On these guys, try to, it can be a little bit more rough when it comes to the nylon ones because they're not going to mark up your wire, like I said. All right, so we had that one. When you lay these coming under the band, again, lay them side by side. Don't bunch on there unless you're going for that kind of more primitive look where you don't care and just bunches, like layering on your coils. Here's what I'm talking about. Okay, I want my coils to lay, so I should technically see 6 of them. Okay, so if you don't, then you can follow the style that I am doing here. See, one of these wires didn't want to be so nice here. Let's go ahead and correct that. It's a beautiful thing about copper. It's more easier to work with than sterling because once you cut it, and sterling's not cheap by any means. Okay. So my wires, what I said exactly would happen. They're bunching on one another. I don't want that look. So I want you to see all 6 wires when they're seated properly. There we go. Fixing it now. Some people like that look. So it's totally up to you, the maker. All right. Going to keep my wires where they were in order here. See, if you look underneath, something's trying to get crazy here. Just try to fix it. Take your time with it. Go in with those nylon jaws and fix it. Straighten it out. Okay. All right, there's my underside. Still want to have these all together. All right, coming up, now I'm going towards the back away from me. And I think that I'm going to go and do these 6. So I'm going to get this to where I'm comfortable. Now I want to do the same thing to the other side. Go ahead and take it for another ride under the band here. Bending, keeping everything in order. Make sure your coils are not on top of each other unless you're going for that look. Mine, I'm laying side by side so you can see 6, a total of 6 of them on top of the band. Okay. Like such. So again, working to make things evenly as possible so I can show you. Here's what I have so far. Okay, let me see if I can bring this up to you here. Okay, that is what I have so far. All right. Now what I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and make some little curls here. It's a little design. Now you can choose to clip underneath the band if you want to take it to coil half again underneath. I don't recommend that. Only reason is because you're sliding your ring on and off, obviously. When you wear it, there's potential. If you didn't file it right, it's going to poke you. So that's why I like to end on the top and do decorative. Okay, but to each their own. Again, this is just so you get the hang of it and you know, and you can take it and put your own style into things and take off with it once you play around with them, you know, and you get more practice in for those that haven't done this before. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm going to take that first wire that is closest to my left, because I'm working from my right side, closest to the stone in a sense. I'm going to go ahead and bring in the round nose pliers, these guys right here that look like a curling iron rod. Now, if you need to trim a little bit down to do this, that's totally fine. You want to make sure your wire is still seated here, side by side. And I'm going to go towards me, make that motion towards me in the curl. So I will have to cut this down, we'll say about half of the wire, okay? Better to leave more than to cut too much. And again, you don't have to make these curly decorative designs. You can choose to cut each of these wires at the top of the band and then start filing it down so that it doesn't catch on anything, it doesn't poke, and it remains smooth. Okay, I may have to cut more of this, but this is just so you see the motion I'm doing. I am grabbing it with my right hand and I'm coming towards myself in that curling motion. Okay, in a sense. Now that's way too much wire still, but again, you can still cut as you go. You can grab it underhand, overhand, totally up to you. I'm choosing to come towards me. Now my wire's wanting to lift at the band here. So again, just patience, squeeze it down, squish it down. Maintain what you're doing here. All right. See, it wants to come up. It just doesn't like, it wants to be a rebel. Wants to be a rebel. All right, seat it in there and get it going. Okay, so essentially, this is what you have right here. The little curly. I apologize, my lights. I'm going to be investing in a better camera, I think. This one happens to not like my backgrounds. It doesn't like the cloth, which is why I figured I would do this video live stream for you guys, because my last one, it didn't want to cooperate. All right, let's see. So we're curling upwards and inwards with that first one. Get it seated properly. When you like the way it looks, then you can go ahead and put that down with the nylon. I might have to cut a little bit more only because it's a lot I'm working with. So just cutting out a little bit from that curl I was doing. Okay. This way I can make it a tighter curl, essentially. I want it to lay in between in the middle here of my band. Okay, so that's where it's at. I'm gonna push that down. Decorative curl here going on. Okay, now you can do the next one that is second closest to the stone. What I like to do, again, I'm going to use my hands so I can better show you. Get these out of the way. Okay, let's get this way. Sorry about that, you guys. What I like to do is follow like a shadow in that curl that I just did. So again, your wire, make sure that it's seated in between because we're going in order. I'm just wrapping and following, like shadowing. When I get to this point at the end of the first curl here, if you can see that, the inner part of the first curl, you can choose to clip right there for that second wire that we're using to mold around the first wire. Okay, so right about there, I'm going to clip. And that's just me making that little curlicue. Now be careful what you're cutting, you guys. Just be careful what you're cutting, and it's what you're intending to cut. Take your time with it if need be, okay? All right, so I've got those two. Smashing things down, being careful about it. You don't want to mark up your stuff. Okay. Now this one, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to come around one more on this last wire. I'm going to come around one time and then I'm going to clip it. Okay. You can choose what you want to do. Totally up to you. If you want to follow around those two curls we've already made, you can choose not to. Again, this is all just on the fly, how I want to create this with you guys. And got a lot of time here. Okay, so I think I like that. I'm going to go ahead and clip it and try your best to tuck it, and keep in mind you don't want anything catching on anything. Okay, make sure you have no room here. It should be tight around the underside of your band. Let's do this. Or you can choose to make another decorative curl in the opposite direction. To each their own. All right, let's do this. See, I'm coming in the angle here with the wire, and I want to control the clipping. Safety first. Okay, smushing it down. Take your time with it. Get it as best you can. Smush down, and that angle that we were cutting is very important because it will limit how much of that you're going to have to file, believe it or not. All right, taking my jewelry file. I'm going away from me just because that's where I clip the wire. If you need to clip a little bit more, then do so. I'm running this by, and what this is going to do is, just like when you file your nails, well, this is a metal jewelry file. It's going to smooth it out, not give it a rough edge, anything to poke you or hinder you there. You can run it opposite, back and forth, so that you get a smooth finish. All right. So there's that side. All right. So that's what we have for the first side here, you guys. Let's see. I want to make sure that this is kind of focusing a little bit better for you. See how that's looking? All right. I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing to the other side, you guys. Me personally, I like symmetrical rings. You don't have to. Do whatever you like, what look you're going for. All right, so again, repeating the process, the wire that's closest to the stone in this sense is the wire that I'm going to choose to curl inwards. So to do that, I'm going to have to minimize the wire length a little bit here. About halfway, okay? Not too much. You can always clip down, as I say. Grabbing my round nose. Okay. Grabbing it. I'm coming towards myself, curling. Now, this is just a little bit too long. No problem. That's all in part of getting to know what you're doing, going through the motion, the techniques, okay? Curl it towards yourself. Now I want it to end up in the middle of this band so that it's not sticking out. It's not going to miss shape. Gives it no room for error. And then seat it down because that wire is going to want to come up. Seat it down properly. I'm squishing my wires together because I see a little gap. No biggie. Okay, still might be a little too long. Not a problem. Cut it down if need be. Only clip what you intend to clip. Once again, very important. I recently got prescription glasses, and I'll tell you, I'm not wearing them right now because I'm so used to doing this, but I should be because that light can trick you if you're not looking. All right, I'm trimming a tiny bit more off of my curl end here because I want to make sure this ends up in the middle, as I stated, of this band. And when I smush it down, it's going to be nothing but that band supporting this curl. Okay. All right. So that's what you should have right now is a curl. Let's see. Who's in this camera? Who's causing it to be blurry? All right. So that's what I've got so far, you guys. We're going to take that second closest wire to the stone, that middle wire, if you will, trace around your curl that you've just made. Okay. And you can cut down as soon as you get to the beginning of that curl. Okay. See how I'm shaping it just like such. Oh, take your time with it. If you need to flatten things along the way, please do so. All right. Shaping around. Shaping around. All right, till you meet the end of that curl. The angle of the cut is what's going to let this wire seat properly with that curl that you've just traced around. So lifting that up just a tiny bit. Be careful what you're cutting. I should be telling myself. Control your clip. All right. Now I'm going to choose to see what we got here. So what we got here? Who's sitting up? If you need to file this, by all means, you can file some. Might need a little bit more clipping. So I'm going to go ahead and clip that wire I was just working with a tiny bit more. I'm covering it completely. I apologize, you guys, because it's going to give a fine little piece that's going to pop up, as you just saw. I don't want anything in my eyes. Always be careful. All right. Here's what we have so far. Let's see. Okay. Hey, thank you, Nini Bunnies. Appreciate you. All right. So again, there's that last wire. There's your little curls, your traced curls. Okay. You can make those curls as tight as you want with no space in between. You can make them as loose as you want, such as I've done, as long as it's resting and supported on the band. Okay. Let's keep it going. The last wire, again, I'm making it symmetrical. So run it through underneath the band. Make sure your wire is sitting as close as possible to the rest of the wires. Give it a little nudge if so. Okay. Finesse, because it's a longer piece. All right, so we put, how many do we do? All right, so I went one complete, and then on that last one, we clipped, just so we're referring back to what's been done. Okay. Let's show you here. Show you in here. There we go. See, I'm trying to get the hang of this camera. Now we're going to go half on top and clip. Clip so it's symmetrical, just like the other one. Okay. The angle on the cut, you guys, once again with those clippers. See how I'm holding them? I apologize. Let's do that again. See where I'm holding them right here? You want to clip. All right. Now let's see where we're at with that clipping we just did. I got some of these pliers. It's not protruding out past the band to snag on things. However, I want to get a little bit of an angle. So let me cover that up. Got the blade. There we go. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and seat that down with my Xuron 450s. Those are the tweezer nose pliers. Seating it down as much as I can. Okay, and then I'm going to file. You do not want it snagging. Don't you just hate when that happens when you do have something, you know, whether it's jewelry or not, or you just had something that you walked by and something pulls a thread in your clothing. You're like, oh man. And it totally messes up the clothing item itself. That's what you want to not do. This is why I'm doing this step right here, filing this down. All right. Okay, make sure it's as smooth as possible there. Run your fingers over it a few times, opposite directions, going in the direction of the clipping, opposite directions, just to make sure it's going to be comfortable for the wearer. All right, let's see. Do a little bit more because I want to make sure. Okay. All right, guys, that should be good, but I want to double check and make sure. I'm running it by my fingers here. All right, that looks like it's good. Seated, it's not protruding. It's part of getting everything nice and tight and smushed down properly, and so it minimizes the time and use of the jewelry file. All right, so here's the ring we've got. Let me put that on for you. Now, I said I was aiming for a size 7.5. Again, just put this in your toolbox. The more you go doing those coils with those wires that we were working with, it takes up finger space, okay? So what you can do, and this is an additional step, this is like bonus material, okay? So if I put this on my ring mandrel, we're looking about a size 6 right now, okay? I was shooting for a 7.5. May not get there, but let me take a moment here to show you, for those that aren't familiar. This is a chasing hammer, a jewelry hammer. It's a chasing hammer and a steel block. You can find these online. They're not too expensive by any means. Whoops, got some cardboard there. Okay, they usually come in a set. I won't be using the steel block. However, I'm going to go ahead and I've got this. I told you I wanted to harden my band. Did I not? Thank you for the thumbs up. I appreciate you guys. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and harden my band and give it some gentle taps. You don't want to be too rough on your ring mandrel because a lot of times these are either aluminum or just like a base metal type tool. So this will harden up your wire on your band, keep better shape, stabilize it if you will, harden it. Okay. Now at the same time, I'm able to move my band down a little further now as far as size. So it's like 6 3/4 now. What you can do is you come towards yourself in my camera here. I apologize. It's a little noisy, just to keep that in mind. And try hammering it towards yourself down in size, or excuse me, larger, to the larger size. So it may end up being about a 7 here, but keep in mind, because of the design and details we did with our wire, that is going to affect the size as well all around. So let's see, probably about a 7. Not bad, 7. 7's a standard jewelry size. So I can't get that on my fingers. I actually have swollen hands right now, a little bit inflammation going on. Let's see if we can get that in there for you. Here's the ring in its final stage. Okay. Any questions, you guys can feel free to leave a comment. I'm always open to giving tips and tricks and these free tutorials at no cost to you. If you like and subscribe and like what I've done here, please feel free to subscribe and I will bring more content to you guys that helps me visibly on my YouTube channel and throughout the world of YouTube here. I appreciate you guys, and this is the final product. You can see it in the community tab of my channel. since I know I've got a little finicky of a camera. But thank you so much, you guys that have joined. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to seeing you again. Thank you all. Have a great weekend.